200 angels stood on the summit of Mount Hermon, and swore an oath that would corrupt the entire earth. They knew it was wrong. Their leader, Semjaza, said it plainly, "I fear you will not agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin." But the others answered, "Let us all swear an oath, and bind ourselves by mutual imprecations not to abandon this plan." So they descended. 200 celestial beings, each a chief of tens, came down from heaven to take human wives, teach humanity forbidden knowledge, and father a race of giants whose violence would bring the world to the edge of annihilation. This is not mythology borrowed from a fringe internet theory. This is the Book of Enoch, a text composed in Aramaic between 300 and 200 years before the Common Era, confirmed by 11 manuscript fragments found in the Dead Sea Scrolls at Qumran, quoted by name in the New Testament Book of Jude, treated as canonical scripture by Tertullian, Clement of Alexandria, and Justin Martyr, and still held as holy scripture today by the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, the oldest continuously practicing Christian body in Africa. And yet most people in the Western world have never read a single line of it. Because at some point between the 4th and 5th centuries, it was quietly excluded from the biblical canon, and effectively erased from Western Christian memory for over 1,000 years. This is Originex Human Archives. I'm going to walk you through exactly what the Book of the Watchers says, who these angels were, what they taught, what their children became, and why this text was removed. Every claim sourced. Every passage cited. No speculation. Just the record. Let us begin with the text itself. The Book of Enoch, known formally as First Enoch, is a composite pseudepigraphal work attributed to Enoch, the seventh patriarch from Adam in Genesis chapter 5. It is not a single book. It comprises 5 distinct tractates, the Book of the Watchers, covering chapters 1 through 36, the Book of Parables, chapters 37 through 71, the Astronomical Writings, chapters 72 through 82, the Book of Dream Visions, chapters 83 through 90, and the Epistle of Enoch, chapters 91 through 107. Today we are focused exclusively on the first section, the Book of the Watchers. George W. E. Nicholsburg, in his landmark Hermeneia commentary published by Fortress Press in 2001, called First Enoch arguably the most important Jewish writing that has survived from the Greco-Roman period. That is not a fringe assessment. That is the standard modern scholarly reference. The text was composed originally in Aramaic, likely in Palestine. The full text survives only in Guizi, classical Ethiopic, preserved by Ethiopian scribes in an unbroken manuscript tradition. The Guizi version is known as Mashafa Henech. For Western scholarship, the definitive English translation was produced by Robert Henry Charles in 1912, working from 9 previously uncollated Ethiopic manuscripts in the British Museum. In 1978, Michael Knibb produced a critical new edition incorporating the Aramaic Dead Sea Scroll fragments for the first time. And in 2001 and 2012, Nicholsburg and James Vanderkam published the 2-volume Hermeneia commentary that synthesizes all surviving textual witnesses, Ethiopic, Greek papyrus, Latin fragments, and the Qumran Aramaic. The dating is secure. Paleographic analysis of the Qumran manuscripts, designated 4QN through 4QN-F, places the oldest copies between 200 and 100 years before the Common Era. The Book of the Watchers was already circulating before the Qumran community itself was established. This is not a medieval forgery. This is a pre-Christian Jewish text, older than most of the New Testament by at least 2 centuries. Now to the narrative. The Watchers, in Aramaic, the word is iron, in Greek, egregoroi, are a class of angels described as the children of heaven. Holy, immortal, spiritual beings appointed to watch over creation. They are not initially fallen. Their transgression is a deliberate, collective, premeditated act. Chapter 6 of First Enoch, in the R.H. Charles translation of 1912, reads: And it came to pass when the children of men had multiplied that in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. And the angels, the children of the heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, Come, let us choose us wives from among the children of men and beget us children. Semjaza, their leader, also rendered Semjaza or Semjaza in different manuscript traditions, hesitates. He says openly, I fear ye will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin. This is a remarkable detail. He knows the act is a transgression. He fears bearing the guilt alone. But the others commit. They swear a collective oath, binding themselves by mutual imprecations. And they descend, 200 of them, on the summit of Mount Hermon. The text is deliberate about the location. Mount Hermon, in Hebrew, derives from herem, meaning curse or ban. The text explicitly claims the mountain received its name because the angels cursed themselves there. This is not incidental geography. It is an etymological statement embedded in the narrative. Chapter 6, verses 7 and 8, preserve the names of the leaders. Each is designated chief of tens. The list includes Semjaza, that is, Semjaza, as leader, followed by Arakelba, Ramiel, Kokabeel, Tamiel, Ramiel, Danel, Ezekiel, Barakijel, Asael, a variant of Azazel, Armoros, Beterel, Ananel, Zakiel, Samsapeel, Satarel, Turel, Jomjel, and Serial. Nicolsburg's analysis identifies two originally distinct literary traditions woven together in the final text. The Semjaza tradition, found in chapters 6, 7, 9, 10a, and 11, centers on the sexual transgression and the production of the giants. The Azazel tradition, primarily chapter 8 and 10b, centers on the revelation of forbidden knowledge. Both traditions were later interwoven by a redactor into the composite narrative we now read. In the final text, Azazel receives the greater portion of blame. God himself declares, The whole earth has been corrupted through the works that were taught by Azazel, to him ascribe all sin. What exactly did the Watchers teach? Chapter 8 is the primary source. The Charles translation reads, And Azazel taught men to make swords, and knives, and shields, and breastplates, and made known to them the metals of the earth and the art of working them, and bracelets, and ornaments, and the use of antimony, and the beautifying of the eyelids, and all kinds of costly stones, and all coloring tinctures. Pause on that. Azazel's curriculum spans metallurgy, specifically weapons manufacturing, swords, knives, shields, breastplates, as well as ornamentation, bracelets, jewelry, precious stones, and cosmetics, antimony for eye lining, coloring tinctures. The Nicolsburg and Vanderkam Hermonia translation renders the same passage with an important detail. He showed them the metals of the earth and how they should work gold to fashion it suitably, and concerning silver, to fashion it for bracelets and ornaments for women. The tradition explicitly genders the cosmetic applications as directed toward women, while the weapons technology is universal. But Azazel is only one teacher. The text names an entire faculty. Semjaza taught enchantments and root cuttings, what scholars identify as pharmaceutical magic. Armoros taught counter-enchantments, the resolving of spells. Barakijel taught astrology. Kokabel taught the constellations. Ezekiel taught cloud reading, meteorological divination. Arakiel taught geomancy, the signs of the earth. Shamsiel taught the signs of the sun. And Serial taught the course of the moon. The breadth of this curriculum is extraordinary. It spans martial technology, cosmetic arts, pharmaceutical knowledge, and celestial divination. And the text does not present this knowledge as neutral technology that was misused. The text insists these were celestial secrets whose premature disclosure to mortals disrupted the cosmic order itself. Scholars including Philip Alexander and Nicolsburg read this passage as a polemic against Hellenistic cultural influence on Judean society during the 3rd and 2nd centuries before the Common Era. Metals, luxury goods, and perfumed cosmetics were entering Jewish elite culture through Hellenistic commerce. The Azazel tradition, in this reading, is a theodicies polemic, attributing the importation of these corrupting practices to demonic rather than human agency. Nichols-Berg observes that the Watcher's narrative functions as an alternative origin story for sin, one that competes directly with the Adamic fall narrative found in Genesis. The consequences of the Watcher's descent are immediate and catastrophic. Chapter 7, in the Charles translation. And they became pregnant, and they bare great giants, whose height was 3,000 ells, who consumed all the acquisitions of men. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. And they began to sin against birds, and beasts, and reptiles, and fish, and to devour one another's flesh, and drink the blood. Then the earth laid accusation against the lawless ones. 3,000 ells. In a hyperbolically literal reading, that would be approximately 4,500 feet. Nichols-Berg notes that the number is not intended as physical measurement, it functions as literary hyperbole, signaling creatures who violate all cosmic boundaries. Their physical excess is a correlate of their ontological transgression. The canonical genealogy connects directly to Genesis chapter 6, verses 1 through 4, which refers to the Nephilim as Bene Elohim, sons of God, mating with Banat Ha-Adam, daughters of men. The Book of the Watchers provides the narrative expansion of that terse 4-verse passage, naming the angels, describing their motivations, and detailing the consequences. But chapter 15 contains the most theologically significant claim. It presents a direct divine oracle to Enoch about what happens to the giants after death. The giants, who are produced from the spirits and flesh, shall be called evil spirits upon the earth. Evil spirits have proceeded from their bodies, because they are born from men and from the holy watchers is their beginning and primal origin, they shall be evil spirits on earth. This is a cosmological mechanism for the origin of demons. They are not fallen angels. They are the disembodied spirits of the half-angelic giants who died in the violence preceding the flood. This doctrine has no direct parallel in the Hebrew Bible. It represents a significant innovation in Israelite theological thought, and its influence can be traced through later texts including the Book of Jubilees, the Dead Sea Scrolls Community Rule, and arguably the New Testament's own demonology. Chapter 9 records the response from heaven. The archangels Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel observe the devastation and bring their petition before God. Their report articulates the dual blame. Thou sayest what Azazel hath done, who hath taught all unrighteousness on earth and revealed the eternal secrets which were preserved in heaven. And Semjaza, to whom thou hast given authority to bear rule over his associates, they have gone to the daughters of men upon the earth, and have slept with the women, and have defiled themselves. And the women have borne giants, and the whole earth has thereby been filled with blood and unrighteousness. God's response, in chapter 10, is decisive and specific. To Raphael, bind Azazel hand and foot, and cast him into the darkness, and make an opening in the desert, which is in Dudiel, and cast him therein. And place upon him rough and jagged rocks, and cover him with darkness, and let him abide there forever, and cover his face that he may not see light. And on the day of the great judgment he shall be cast into the fire. And then the critical line, heal the earth which the angels have corrupted. And the whole earth has been corrupted through the works that were taught by Azazel, to him ascribe all sin. Semjaza and his associates receive a parallel but distinct sentence, they are bound for 70 generations in the valleys of the earth until the final judgment. The text presents a complete theodicy. Evil entered the world not through human failing alone, but through angelic transgression, a celestial conspiracy that corrupted human knowledge, human bodies, and the natural order itself. This is a fundamentally different theology of evil from the Adamic fall, and it created significant friction with the direction Western Christianity would eventually take. So why was this text removed from the Western Bible? First, let us correct a widespread misconception. The popular claim that the Council of Nicaea in 325 CE removed the Book of Enoch from the Bible is historically false. Bart Ehrman, among others, has documented definitively that the Nicaea Council addressed Christological controversy, specifically Arianism, and took no formal vote on the composition of the biblical canon. The Gospel Coalition confirms, there is no historical basis for the idea that the Council of Nicaea established the canon and created the Bible. The actual process of exclusion was gradual, contested, and multi-causal. First, the rabbinical canon that emerged after the destruction of the Temple in 70 CE did not include 1st Enoch. When Jerome, writing around 400 CE, chose to align the Old Testament with the rabbinical Hebrew canon, what he called Hebraica Veritas, he systematically excluded texts not found therein. Since 1st Enoch was associated primarily with the Essene strand of Judaism rather than the Pharisaic tradition, it fell outside this boundary. Second, pseudepigraphal attribution. Scholarly consensus, even in the ancient world, held that the text was not written by the patriarch Enoch but by later authors writing under his name. The criterion of prophetic authorship, fundamental to canonicity, was not satisfied. Third, contested reception among the Church Fathers. Tertullian, writing around 200 CE, considered it authentic scripture. Justin Martyr used it approvingly. Clement of Alexandria cited it. Origen initially considered Enoch a prophet, but later expressed doubts. By the 4th century, the tide had turned. Athanasius did not include it in his festal letter of 367 CE, and the Council of Laodicea, around 363 to 364 CE, formally excluded it. Fourth, and this is crucial, theological incompatibility. The elaborate angelology, the idea that sin originated with fallen angels rather than exclusively with Adam and Eve, and the semi-independent mythology of the Watchers created friction with the developing Western doctrine of the fall and original sin. Augustine accepted that 1st Enoch contained some inspired material while rejecting other parts, a position that itself signals the text's ambiguous status. And fifth, the survival gap. After exclusion, the complete text was not known to Western scholarship for over a millennium. It was James Bruce who brought 3 Ethiopic manuscripts back from Ethiopia in 1773. Richard Lawrence translated it into English in 1821. R.H. Charles produced the definitive translation in 1912. And the Aramaic originals were not confirmed until the Dead Sea Scrolls discoveries beginning in 1947. But one church never abandoned this text. The Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, the sole major Christian body that considers 1st Enoch canonical scripture, includes it within its 81-book Bible. Ethiopia adopted Christianity in the 4th century under King Ezana, before the major ecumenical councils narrowed canons elsewhere. Protected by the Abyssinian highlands, the Ethiopian Church developed independently of Rome and Constantinople, and when European missionaries later attempted to standardize their practice, Ethiopian clergy resisted canon reduction. The Tewahedo Church's official statement reads, "The whole Christendom and the whole learned world owes a debt of gratitude to the Church of Ethiopia for the preservation of those documents." The final confirmation came from the Judean desert. The Dead Sea Scrolls, discovered from 1947 onwards in the Qumran caves, transformed understanding of 1st Enoch's antiquity. Qumran Cave 4 alone yielded 11 fragmentary Aramaic manuscripts of the text, designated 4QN through 4QNF. These were published by Joseph Milik in 1976 through Oxford's Clarendon Press. The density of Enochic manuscripts at Qumran is remarkable. 1st Enoch is represented by more copies than any non-Mosaic work found there. The Qumran community, generally identified as Essenes, treated this text with extraordinary authority. The Enochic solar calendar of 364 days aligned with their own calendrical system, in opposition to the lunar calendar used by the Jerusalem Temple establishment. Cave 4 also produced 9 manuscripts of a related text, the Book of Giants, which names giants including Ohia, Haya, and Mahaway, and describes their dreams and the role of Enoch as their intercessor. And then there is the New Testament connection. The Epistle of Jude, verses 14 and 15, contains a direct quotation of 1 Enoch chapter 1, verse 9. The passage reads, "Now Enoch, the seventh in descent beginning with Adam, even prophesied of them, saying, Look! The Lord is coming with thousands and thousands of his holy ones, to execute judgment on all." The introductory formula, Enoch, the seventh from Adam, prophesied, identifies the source by name. Scholars including James D. G. Dunn and Richard Bauckham agree this represents not a casual literary allusion but a direct citation treated with prophetic authority. A text composed 3 centuries before Christ. Confirmed by Dead Sea Scroll archaeology. Quoted by name in the New Testament. Preserved for 2 millennia by Ethiopian scribes. And effectively unknown to most of the Western world until the 19th century. This is the Book of the Watchers. And now you have the evidence. If this is your first time here, this channel is Originex Human Archives. We deal in evidence-led history. Primary sources. Cited scholarship. No speculation. If you want to go deeper, our full research database is available at originex.org/research, over 1,000 entries, fully searchable. And our published volumes are at originex.org/shop. Subscribe. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And I will see you in the next episode.